and welcome to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World. I'm Stelios Hatzakis, CEO of One Business World. Leading Entrepreneurs of the World features entrepreneurs, founders, and business leaders presenting on cutting-edge topics and the latest industry developments. Today, we're very pleased to welcome leading global entrepreneur David Wolfe. David is the CEO of New Economy Brands, which invests in and/or advises over 20 e-commerce businesses. New Economy Brands' core investment, which is also under active management, is the Fascination, a curated online marketplace where you can discover, research, and shop emerging, mission-driven, direct-to-consumer brands, all in one place. David has a 34-year history of starting and growing new businesses. After 7 years as a strategy consultant in London, David moved to the US in 1994 to co-found and build the Vacation Store, one of the first large-scale direct travel companies. The company was sold to a strategic buyer in '98. David spent the next 16 years bringing new ideas to life, using e-commerce as a primary transactional platform. He partnered with and advised several of the major consumer product companies, including Procter & Gamble, Clorox, General Mills, Purina, and VF Corporation. David was also the co-founder and member of the investment committee of a private equity firm for 16 years. In 2014, David and his innovation team developed the Lisa mattress and launched the company in 2015, growing annual sales to just under $130 million by 2017. He's most proud of Lisa's mattress donation program, which was built into the DNA of the company long before launch. David led the company's early growth through 2018. In 2018, and in recognition of his visionary leadership and positive impact, David was honored with EY's Entrepreneur of the Year 2018 award in the consumer products category for the Mid-Atlantic region. David is driven by his passion for his family, his friends, his work, and a deep sense of purpose. David, we are very, very happy and honored and actually very excited to have you here with us today to hear more about how one can get from an idea to $130 million in sales in 3 years. Welcome to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World. David, can you hear us? Hello? David, welcome to Leading Entrepreneurs of the World. The stage is yours.
Thank you. And thanks for the people who've come to listen to this live. I appreciate it. And so, you know, this is obviously a story that's pretty close to my heart. And I'm going to share a screen so I can share part of the story. That introduction was a little bit more than I was anticipating. So I'm humbled by it and thank you. Let me share my screen here and get it into presentation mode. Here we go. This has been really a quite extraordinary ride for me. I've started 16 companies. I always joke that I'm sort of unemployable at this point because every company I've actually worked for since business school I started. So I have to keep doing that every time I move on from a startup, sell it or just move on. I've invested personally in 30 startups, and then a lot of the story you heard before, I'm a board advisor on a couple of boards, very proud of Able, which is a women's fashion company that empowers women that I'm on the board of, and I'm on the advisory board of a company called LEW, which is a pre-owned luxury company. I love companies that are mission driven. I'm on the board of our regional angel fund here. I was on the investment committee of a PE fund. But I think you know, I put at the bottom here, I've been married for 37 years, which I think is perhaps in this day and age, more impressive than building a company to 130 million in sales. But that's very much part of the reason why I've been able to do it. And I'll talk about support in a moment. I have two grown daughters. My wife and I live in Virginia Beach, and I'm loving what I'm doing as much today as I loved it when I started and wrote my first business plan 35 years ago. And this image here on the left with the dot matrix printout was my first business plan. And just in the middle here was my second business when I basically started a business strategy unit at Stoy Hayward, which is now BDO. I became a partner there, and soon after I left, and I started Prime Strategy Consultants with a group of people. On the very left here is the actual story of me joining Stoy Hayward. And then my first business in the States was a direct-to-consumer travel company called The Vacation Store. You see my partner there, and you can see us either side of the group photo outside. We had a retail store as well as a call center. And then around it, you see other businesses that I started, media brands, new economy brands, and then Lisa and my latest, the Fascination. So I'm going to I've missed out several, but I'm going to jump around some stories, but mostly I'm going to talk about Lisa. Here is a smattering of, I went online over the weekend, and this is just a sort of smattering of images of TV commercials I made, infomercials I've made, brands that I've advised, nonprofits that I've worked with and love doing on a pro bono basis, like Net Health and Operation Smile. I've been very, very fortunate to have been asked to help with bringing some phenomenal new ideas to life. You know, I called this talk, how do you go from an idea to 130 million in sales? So you start with an idea, and what is interesting is I get called all the time by friends of mine saying, I've got this idea, I think it'll make a great business, or I think it's a phenomenal idea. And the first thing I say to them is like, well, how big is it? Like, is it really solving a problem? But most importantly, I'm not quite sure what they think I'm going to do with their idea, because I'm busy and I've got plenty of ideas of my own. I'm not short of ideas. You know, the question is, do they want to actually leave their cushy job, what I call the salary drug, and actually go out and build a company? Because there are thousands and thousands of great ideas out there. But this is all about how do you actually execute? What does it take to actually do it? And the other thing I want to mention is that I am a consumer products guy. I'm not business to business. And I'm also not in the complete game changer business. You know, going all the way back to, let's say, something like AOL that brought 56K connectivity into people's homes and then gave them a browser in which to actually get information into the home. Those are long tail, huge businesses where the risk is higher, the reward is higher, and the timeline is longer. I'm into finding better solutions to current consumer behavior, and which gives you the opportunity to create value very quickly if you get it right. And the questions that I always ask on the idea is, does it resolve a real need or desire? Does it do it better than it's currently done? And is it a big idea? And then I have this immediate gut check that I do, which is, do the unit economics make sense? Is it a lifetime value business, or is it an average order value? Do we have to make money like mattresses on the first order because the repeat order is going to be, you know, once every 5 years? Or is this indeed something that is really pays off over the life of the project? And one of the things that people do is they often put their marketing budget together first. But what I like to do is to say, what's the average order going to be? Take off that what it's going to cost us, the CAC, to actually get the order. Take off that the cost of the goods. Take the returns off and the transaction costs off, and the contribution that you want to make off the revenue. And that leaves you your allowable marketing. And the question is, on a unit basis, can you acquire a customer for what's left? And if you can't, you shouldn't start, because at the end of the day, you're going to invest a lot of money and you're going to lose it. And I've met too many people that have come to me after they've mortgaged their house to develop a product, and they'll show me a wonderful product that they've invested their life savings in. And their problem is marketing, but their problem really is that it really didn't stand a chance from the beginning. So that's the basics of the idea. And then, you know, if you've got a great idea, how do you build a business? And years ago, actually in 1987, I wrote a paper where that I still use to this day on how to build a business, and said that there are 8 building blocks: the people, the product, the marketing and sales, the technology, or systems as I called it then, the structure, the finance and accounting, the operations, and the procurement and logistics. Today, I'm going to talk about 4 of those things, which I think are ultimately the most critical in terms of why we were successful in building the business so quickly. This is real life. And this was over the weekend. I went back into my phone to screenshots that I took along the way. I was tracking this business 24/7. It was driving people crazy. And I like to see the business. I could literally spot if a new campaign was working or it wasn't. And as a result, I caught moments along the way when we hit major milestones. And as you can see from the Shopify app, 1,000 products, 1,000 sales is about $1 million. Is about $1 million because it's about $1,000 average transaction. So as you can see along the bottom here, in Q1 of 2015, we reached 4 million. And by the time we got to Q4 in 2017, we'd done about 200 million in sales. And in 2017 itself, we did about $125 million in sales. At one point in time, we were the fastest growing e-retailer as measured by internet retailer, ahead of Harry's Grooming, Petco, Touch of Modern, and Satva. It was a pretty extraordinary ride. And here are some of the things that I would recommend. I'm going to share a little bit more as we go along. First question is, do you or don't you want a partner? And I always believe that you want a partner. For me, it's a very, very lonely path to travel on your own. And I believe very, very, very strongly in partnerships. And when you have a partner, you never know where the value is going to come from. So share things, you know, as you set out to share them, and never look back and say, I did this and you did that, or I did more than you. And it's not, you know, like if you never think about that, if the pot is large enough, everyone's going to do well. And so I have had some incredible partners along the way, and we've lent on each other at times, particularly at difficult times. It does get difficult. And then the next thing is, do you hire experienced people or do you hire youth? And to a certain extent, that's decided for you, because when you're a startup, you have no choice. You can't afford really experienced people. And the other thing is that experienced people have run large businesses, and they don't know what it's like to sit around a table with just an idea to plan how you're going to build a business with no revenue, no customers to talk to. So as I've built businesses along the way, my team has always been in their mid to late 20s up to early 30s. And I've got older, but the team just kind of replenishes itself. And all of those people have gone off and done extraordinary things. And a couple of them have stayed with me. My current business partner joined me over a decade ago, straight out of business school. And now we're 50-50 partners in our activities. So I've talked about the salary drug. That will prevent experienced people joining anyway, because I'm always very honest and direct about what it is they're joining and the risks. And then there's this phasing thing. And I use a soccer analogy, because when kids start to play soccer or football, as I call it, one of them kicks the ball and everybody runs after the ball together. And that's okay because they're basically just learning what is this actual game that we're playing here. And then eventually someone has the bright idea of putting a red flag at one end and a blue flag at the other. So at least you can tell your children, your child, which direction they're heading. So they have a goal and it's either a red flag or a blue flag, but everyone still runs together. Eventually, they learn a position and they stay in a position and wait for the ball to come. But when a team really moves well together, the skills are honed and the team players, they're anticipating where the ball's going to be. And when the ball comes to them, they know where everyone is and they can pass it along. So that eventually, when the right ball comes along, they're in the right place at the right time to score. And that's really what building businesses are like. Every one of them follows this kind of timeline: 3 months of planning, 3 months of building, sometimes a little more, 3 months that I call launch, and then 3 months of early development. And quite often the same people do very, very different things. We recently launched the Fascination, which is an online marketplace. And when we launched, everybody had to stop and write copy and write content because we needed so much content to go live. We reviewed something like 190 brands before we went live. And the Fascination is a marketplace for emerging brands. And so it was really important to tell these stories well. And then as soon as we were launched, that changed. And 3 months later, the focus changes. Then you have 12 months of early growth and 12 months of consolidation, unless you hit a crisis. And typically a crisis lasts about 3 months from realizing you've got it to resolving it. And then the turnaround period from actually dealing with the crisis can take anything from 12 to 24 months. And then you're back on the growth curve again. So that's basically how it works. And as I said, you start with youth because you have to. And then eventually, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Eventually, you can bring in experience. I have this expression that I use all the time, which is if you want tomorrow to be different from today, you have to do something different today. And so we spend a lot of time questioning what we're doing and questioning what outcomes we want to have, visualizing success, and then saying, okay, well, what do we have to do today that's different? And we're constantly challenging ourselves to do that. You have to take action. You can't procrastinate in a startup because time is absolutely money. You've got a limited amount of money to build. The latest venture that I started now, well, I can go back to the Lisa days when we launched Lisa in beta at the end of November 2014. I then went to the UK. My father had his 80th birthday, and I left to go to the UK and said to my team, we've got to sell 150 mattresses. Actually, I said we've got to sell 60 mattresses in December. Otherwise, we're going to run out of cash. Unfortunately, we sold 150, and the rest is history, as they say. And even on my latest startup, I was prepared to put a certain amount of money in to start it, to self-fund through launch through February, but we had to achieve certain things so that we could then raise our seed capital. And we successfully raised $1 million of seed capital, our max, right on cue. Also use the 80% rule. Don't wait until you think you've got everything perfect, because actually nothing's ever perfect. So if you're 80% sure that what you've got is going to work, you need to execute rather than procrastinate, because you're going to learn from the results way more than you can possibly learn from any research that you do. And keep the team together. It's very easy in a startup for silos to be created, for individuals to think, I've got this, let me do it, and not to communicate. So communication is critical. And also being direct, being honest, and being transparent. I think people think that I'm hugely trusting because I share everything with the startup team, but it's not just that I trust them. It's that I don't really think they can do their job properly unless they really understand what's going on. So the good, the bad, and the ugly get shared. And if people are not doing their job, then we have to address it immediately. You cannot have a weak link. We often hire people on a 3-month trial basis. And in a startup, it's critical that if that person doesn't work out after 3 months, you have to be kind to them and to everyone in the company and say, okay, this isn't working out, because carrying someone, a small team, carrying a weak link is just very, very damaging for morale, for everything, and for progress. And then I always kind of see myself at any moment as either needing to be an inspirational optimist or a concerned pessimist. Sorry, I've got a typo. So I'm not sure I asked myself that question, but when I look back, I know how my day was or my week was, and either one of those it drives action. At the end of the day, business is a lot of things, but it's mainly about the people. And I share here a few things that that are fun and I'm proud of. In the middle is the Lisa team. I think it was December of the second year, and interestingly, only 3 people that are in that photo are still there today. My co-founders there, and 1 person in CX, and 1 person on the retail team. Everybody else has moved on, and most of them I'm still either in touch with. Many of them are working together in different businesses, 2 or 3 different businesses. 2 of them are married. 2 of them have a baby together. It's been, it was an unbelievable journey. On the right is the leadership team when we launched our second mattress. Again, many working together now. Only 1 of the people, my co-founder, still at the company. On the left at the top is when we were one of the leading, I think we were one of the fastest growing companies on Shopify, and we were invited to Necker Island, and Richard Branson is there, and Damon John is there, and Toby and Harley from Shopify. They'd just gone public at that point in time. Everyone knows now, just how dominant and successful they've been. Bottom left is me with the CEO and COO of Shopify, and Tim Ferriss. The next photo I added because the 2 people that are there with my partner, my business partner, and I, we invested in their next business, and they just invested in our next business. So friendships and relationships were built. I got to meet my early business hero, Richard Branson, in his home. And then in the middle at the bottom is my partner and I signing our first fundraising and our second fundraising transactions. And bottom right is my family at a Lisa event somewhere. Hugely proud and thankful that they've supported me through the good times and the bad, because there have certainly been some difficult times on this journey. Now let's talk about the product for a moment, get back to the actual process. I just don't believe in minimal viable products. When someone says, oh, we just need this amount of money to build a minimal viable product, I'm like, it turns me off completely. You build your reputation based on how good your product is. Good news travels fast and bad news travels faster. And we just don't do that. We take the time to get our product to the point where we think it's pretty awesome. When we launched the Lisa mattress, we felt quite confidently that it was the best mattress in its price point available in America. No compromise. The product has to be outstanding. It's funny because I've done a lot of direct to consumer marketing, including direct TV, and people used to say to me, "Oh, I'm all that stuff they sell on TV. I don't want to do direct response TV." And I'm like, no, you've got a great product and you've got a great brand. All I'm suggesting you do is put a call to action so that you can build your brand one transaction at a time. And interestingly, they were still put off because they thought it was terrible products. And really, the best products that were on TV were on for years and years and years because they were amazing products. Products like Proactive and Total Gym, they didn't stay on TV for years because they were terrible products. They stayed on TV because they were outstanding products. People loved them and they talked about them. now a little bit about marketing. I say here, marketing is a discipline with no shortcuts. Um, you have to understand your customer. Obviously, that's the first thing. Um, and once you do that, you've got to take people from unaware to aware into this mousetrap or funnel, as people call it, from unaware to aware, from aware to interest, from interest to engagement, and engagement to trial, and then trial to repeat. And that's the way it was for years. And now, of course, there's this sort of megaphone, which is once people have tried it, you want the user generated content and you want to socialize their message. So you want to build virality if you can into the way you build your business. We introduced this mass trap and megaphone concept back at the beginning of 2012, and we helped companies as big as General Mills and Nestle, Purina, build online communities using this technique. I already mentioned transactional brand building. Early stage direct-to-consumer companies can't afford to spend money on their brand. If they do, they just have to raise more and more money to build their brand. So you build your brand one transaction at a time. So you really want your creative to be great, and you want each customer to talk about your brand. PR is good, but PR stunts give you a little blip. I can tell you, time and time again, you get a really good PR hit, you think it's great, gives you a tiny little blip and it goes away. Partnerships are enduring. When you launch them, and that can be an influencer partnership or a corporate partnership, you get if it's the right partnership, you get a bump, but it then endures, it grows. The best is content. If you can create incredible content with the right people and put it into the right channels, it lasts forever, really, and has the longest tail of all. And instead of declining over time, it builds over time. Finally, it's never ending. Like you can never relax when it comes to marketing. You have to stay relevant. And I've seen that with brands that I was involved in, that they stopped being constantly out there in the conversation, and you risk becoming irrelevant. I talk a lot about scale and influence. This is a little bit obvious, but up until around 2000, I worked with brands a lot that would spend a lot of money in first year marketing to try and really gain some scale and hope that that scale would be influential. I always talk about, I work with General Mills, that there was a time when if Betty Crocker said something, women all over America would react. As we all know, the whole world has changed. Those fortunately, those kinds of relationships, they sort of still exist in pockets, but generally speaking, influence is now is much narrower. And so what you have to do is invest in influence first and scale follows. It flipped on its head with the introduction and the proliferation of Facebook and Twitter, and then obviously other social platforms since then, Instagram and Pinterest, and now TikTok. And then the last thing, which we believe is the most important, is what we call 7-step messaging. And 7-step messaging is, you can have the best product, you can have the greatest team, you can have the greatest content, you can have everything right, but if you don't communicate it well to your customer, it's not going to work. I remember when years ago Clorox came to me, they were launching Greenworks, and the brand manager was just like at the end of his kind of almost giving up on it. He had a small amount of money left to prove that bringing out a green cleaning product was a good idea, and everybody knew it was. And the problem was that, as I saw it, I looked at the same data as everyone else, and what they were seeing was a natural cleaning product and thought that's what people were buying. But what people were actually buying was a cleaner that worked as well as traditional cleaners, but without the harsh fumes and chemical residue. And once we talked about the fact that it worked naturally rather than it being natural, it kind of turned it on its head. So you have to understand the need you're addressing. In that case, the need for no harsh fumes and chemical residue, but still wanting it to work. And so understanding the problem is the first step. What's wrong with the current way it's being addressed is another. is the second step. So with mattresses, for example, part of what was wrong was people didn't know what was in their mattress. In fact, when we started in the business, no one really knew the brand of mattress they were on. They certainly didn't know what it was made of or what they were buying. They either had an expensive mattress or a cheap mattress. You would ask someone, have you got a good mattress? Oh, yeah. I spent like $3,000 or $5,000. I've got a great mattress. But they really didn't know why. They didn't really know what made it good. So that was one issue. Another was it was a very uncomfortable experience to go into a mattress store, often with men and women going in to make the decision and laying down on a mattress. I was part of the inspiration for starting it was shopping for a mattress with my daughter when she graduated from college and moved to New York. And we went to a store and it was a horrible experience. And so changing that and shipping direct was a big thing. So understanding what's wrong is important. And then you have to articulate the benefits of your solution. And those benefits are always one of three things. They are functional, they are emotional, or they are financial. There is no other benefit that's relevant to a consumer. Consumers are buying to gain some benefit, or they're buying to avoid some kind of loss. But at the end of the day, it works better than others. It gives you a better feeling, it makes you feel better about who you are or about who you are to other people. Or it may be less money for the same thing. I include social because since social media, some people buy things for the emotional benefit of being able to share that they own it. And it's still an emotional benefit, but it has sort of different connotations now. And then you have to show the reasons to believe. People buy on emotion, but they justify with logic. So you have to have the reasons to believe. That could be demonstrations, it could be science, some way of demonstrating that what you've claimed the benefits are actually real. And then we all know how important testimonials are. I call that, if you don't believe us, believe people like you. And then build the value. And quite often the thing that people forget is the call to action. You have to ask for the sale. If people don't understand that that's the business you're in, then they're not gonna buy from you. It's a little bit of the problem we have on the Fascination at the moment, which has gone incredibly way better than we anticipated. But I'm a touch disappointed with the with some of the conversion rates. And we look at it and we can see it's all about conversion. Here, I just want to share with you that we do this ourselves. On the left, you can see the original mattress being built, designed, fabrics being chosen. It was originally going to be called Hush. We found an Indian website called Hush that sold bedding to the hospitality industry. So we had to come up with a different name. And the other thing was, for reasons that probably you'd be aware of, our lawyers advised us not to use 3 stripes because there's a sports company that's quite well known in Germany that owns 3 stripes. So we did 4 stripes. And on the right, you can see the first 4 steps on our whiteboard, on our wall of the 7 steps. Beneath it is the rest of the 7 steps, but that's us actually doing the work. You know, we call the 7 steps a bit of religion, but you know, on that subject, purpose has always been a strong driver for me, and I believe purpose-driven companies are stronger. And just have had the most incredible privilege to have donated more than 30,000 mattresses to shelters while I was in the hot seat at least. So we donated 1 mattress for every 10 we sold. And, you know, I was always kind of inspired, I think, by the people of faith that were in the business of helping the homeless. And I always said to them that, you know, Abraham Joshua Heschel said that faith isn't the clinging to a shrine, but an endless pilgrimage of the heart. And that touched me, and I think it touched them as we kind of went on that pilgrimage together. And I do believe that if you can have a very strong purpose, and most of the companies I'm involved in are purpose-driven in some way, it connects your brands to your customers, which brings down your acquisition costs. There's good big business reasons to do it, but that's not why you do it. You do it because it's the right thing to, it feels good to do good, and it's okay to feel good about doing good. The impact on the team is huge. Many people say they joined Lisa because of our purpose. I know that that's how we got our relationship with West Elm, which was hugely important. It's become table stakes, but be careful, because in most brands that I see, it's more window dressing than real. You have to connect the purpose to your values and your business. And here are the benefits. When it happens, I've had some unbelievable experiences. Here I am. Damon John came to the opening of our Virginia Beach store. Pharrell, I'm there donating mattresses to kids with Pharrell in the top right. I'm with Ali Raisman in Boston at a charity called Heading Home. And then she came to our store. And then this is the launch of West Elm. Not only does West Elm cover the story, but Forbes covers the story. We replaced Casper in West Elm stores as we were building. So the benefits are huge. It's important to know when and how to evolve. Businesses are going to get bigger. I'm no longer running Lisa. I perhaps should have realized it earlier, but people needs change over time. We needed more experienced people, and it was quite a humbling experience to realize that whilst I'm very, very good and I'm excited about building a business, it takes a different kind of person to take a business that's over $100 million in revenue and to run that, and hiring different people. So the different challenges that you have along the way offer different rewards. I realize now that I absolutely love those first few years. I'm still the board chair at Lisa. I'm still very involved. One of the largest shareholders, maybe the largest individual shareholder. But but it's run by a professional team now, and they're doing a really amazing job. The team that helps you start the business will achieve incredible things, both with you and I have seen them take that experience on to build unbelievable businesses. I mean, just one after another after another. And that goes back throughout my career, how successful people have been. Many of the people who worked on my team for brief spells have gone on to be way more successful than I have. It's one of my proudest achievements. And you have to reward loyalty. So some people are going to stay with you. You have to reward their loyalty. And others you have to hire in experience, and you end up with a combination of people who've stuck with you for a long time, like Matt, my partner now, and others, and people who you've brought in later on. Some imperatives and a couple of watch outs. So measure everything always. This is the finance part. Measurement is better than research, because when you measure, it tells you how you're doing. So if you do the right performance measurement, it becomes your research. I call it transactional testing. The best way to see how you're doing is to see how people are actually interacting with you. Your customers are going to tell you what you need to know. So you need to test things and use that as your main research. That isn't a substitute for some forms of research that you have to do separately, but the main research you're going to do is in measuring everything and always optimizing, always changing, always adapting. And then have a good support infrastructure. It's lonely. My advisors, my accountant has been with me for 20, my CPA has been with me for about 26 years. And my attorneys as well. I've got new ones now, but the attorneys that helped me through Lisa have been with me for 20 years or so. It's just so important. In fact, both my accountant and my attorney have invested in my business, which is a testament to a lot, I think. And then you've got to nurture your family and friends. I did not miss a single event at my kids' school, even back to nursery school. You're going to need your family more than anything. And quite often when I look back and say, how did I do this? One of the reasons I did it is that I was married so young that I never had social pressure. So I could focus on my business, and my partner, my wife, has just always been incredibly encouraging and understanding of this crazy up and down world, which you have if you're, I guess, what's technically called, what people like to call a serial entrepreneur.
We can see you, David.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
Um, so, uh, am I driven by this insatiable desire to succeed, or the pessimist, the uncontrollable fear of failure? And the answer is both. And I think most entrepreneurs will share it, and it's okay. A therapist helps from time to time, but it's okay. Um, uh, and then finally, let me take you back to the beginning. On the left is a picture of the house we lived in then, of the first Lisa mattress arriving at my home, delivered by UPS. It was an incredible, the emotional moment, taking it in and getting our Tempur-Pedic mattress out and putting our Lisa mattress in. In the middle is an image from a photo shoot that became called. A lot of people didn't like it, but for reasons that, as we became more and more aware, that ad was called "Girl on a Mattress," and sold us more mattresses than any other single piece of creative we ever developed. And the shoot was done as a favor to me. So it didn't cost us anything. And then on the right, of course, when we launched in the UK, we had Michael Phelps on our team by then, and we were able to launch with Sleep Like the World's Greatest and in Germany. And then incredible moments like Damon John laying on our mattress that we shipped out to Necker Island in the British Virgin Islands, taking in the sun on our mattress. Ali Raisman and Michael Phelps doing a contest who can do a prettier dive onto our mattress. That was when she first launched it. That went, the two of them fought on that thing for days, and I can't remember how many likes it got, but it was, 100,000 maybe, I'm not sure. And then our two most viral reviews were these two in the middle. I almost died. There was a fire in my building. I slept through it. That went on Reddit and had millions and millions of views. And then Dangerously Comfortable. You'll be late for work. Who's this for? It's not for everybody. Everyone's got an idea for a great business, but are they really willing to give up the salary drug? Because it takes a founder to start a business. People talk about founders as though there's this magic thing, they happen to be there on day one. But it is the drive of the founder that gets businesses going, and it's often what you have to rest on, or the co-founders you have to rest on in those early days. So if you've got a great idea and you want to turn it into a business, you've got to be prepared to take the leap and be a founder. No one's sitting waiting for your idea, or very few people. Entrepreneurs don't need ideas. They've got plenty of them. They're short of time. So, so are you ready to do it? That's the question. You have to take the first step. It's, as I went for a walk with my wife over the weekend, and I said, I feel happiest when I'm working, when I feel two or three of the ideas that I'm working on are like lottery tickets stacked in my favor, where I can see the outcome, and the outcome is huge. And it's not money really anymore. I mean, obviously most people like to be financially successful. But for me, I've got most of the things I need in the world. For me, it's just this constant drive I have to have a vision of what success looks like and go after it. And I know that I'm going to go from crisis to crisis, product challenges, competitive issues, frivolous lawsuits, investors putting pressure on, performance dips. It happens all the time. And when it does, you can't freeze. You have to be the kind of person that will work your hardest when times are toughest. I once had a partner, we were waiting on some very big checks to arrive, and we were out of cash and worried about whether we were going to meet payroll. And I've never missed a payroll in all these startups, actually, but we were very, very close. And he was frozen. He was literally sat he was in a different place, and he was on Skype at the time with our controller. And I could hear him pinging all the time, asking our controller if the cash was in, And meanwhile, I was busy trying to go out and build more business. And at the end of that process, when we did turn things around, we had to sit down, and he just agreed that he didn't have the kind of the strength to deal with that. And I bought him out over a period of time. So it's hard work, but it's unbelievably rewarding. I wouldn't change things for anything. This career has taken me all over the world. I flew on Concorde more than 20 times. I've crossed the Atlantic, twice by boat. Things that, I've got friends all over the world. I've been on charity trips to Morocco and to Nicaragua. I've worked in China. It's been unbelievable. It's been an incredible and continues to be an incredible journey, and I love every minute of it. And when my father thought I was crazy leaving the partnership that I just joined when I became a partner at Stoy Hayward, now BDO, and my dad thought I had gone completely bonkers. I was 27 years old. One of the partners said to me, "Why would you want to do that?" He said, "I'm 40 years old. I've already got £1 million in the bank, and I'm gonna, be able to retire comfortably." And I went home and I said to my wife, "That is the worst thing I've ever heard." And it's just, and this isn't for everybody, but it certainly was for me. When it clicks, it clicks. This is our first 13 months here, as you can see, just huge. You can see up into over 4 million in November and in January of our second year. Whoops, excuse me. And, we have this incredible contribution. It's obviously changed. It's become much more competitive now. But that was our platform. And so finally, I always use this. I love the expression. I always thought it was Gary Player that said it. And if you look it up, both of them, it says that both of them said it. But, when Arnold Palmer was told he was lucky with his putter one day, he said, "Yeah, and the more I practice, the luckier I get." Very few entrepreneurs hit the big one on their first attempt. But you won't quit, actually, because once you get a feel for it, you'll want to do it again. Eventually, you'll be in the right place at the right time with the right team. And so, to summarize, you've got to have a great idea, a great team. You've got to be incredibly focused on marketing and use the 7 steps or something like it. You've got to have great support around you. You've got to have enough capital. You've got to have both pessimism and optimism. And ultimately, you've got to be lucky and have fun. And after I sold my first business in 1998, we had a party, and a reporter came up to me and said, "That must have been 4 incredible years." And I said, "You know what? It was 4 of the hardest years of my life with one great day at the end of it." And so that's my story on how I think some of the ideas on how we built a company from an idea to 130 million in 3 years.
David, what an incredible journey of creation and growth. Very inspirational for all of us. You are the definition of a leading entrepreneur. You spoke about the building blocks that need to be in place for an idea to stop being an idea and start being a company, identifying the right people, onboarding the right people. You said all it's done by the people, and so many other great insights and advice, and also being purpose driven and contribute back to one's community. One question might be, in today's interconnected global environment, it is much, much easier than ever before for companies to expand outside of their country. And this certainly applies to e-commerce platforms. Would you be able to share some thoughts on how, let's say, high growth organizations could reach out of their geographies carefully and solidly?
Sure. It's difficult for a British guy with an American partner. I will just say that. One that perhaps he would say himself was, America is such a big market. That's one of the things, so if you're in Europe and you want to come to if you want to come to America, I see that as being a huge opportunity, and direct to consumer works well. But the truth of the matter is, and I mean this with the greatest respect to all the countries in Europe and elsewhere, it's not just a simple matter of putting a website up in the UK and Germany and France. You have to deal with all the local issues and the languages. And we opened an office in the UK, and from there we went into Germany initially, and we had a plan to go elsewhere. Lisa still has an office in the UK, or at least a team. In post-COVID, no actual office, but it's really it's a development office for the US. The mattresses are no longer still available in the UK, and partly it's just because the team in a startup quite rightly said the US is such a big opportunity. Why not go after it? So it was relatively straightforward starting in the UK because I had a history there. Obviously, I'm from the UK. And I would say, from a technology perspective, straightforward. From a practical perspective, I would go after a partner. And we had a partner in Canada initially, Hudson's Bay. And that's the way I'm looking at Canada myself right now. For the Fascination, I do want to sell around the world, but I will have local partners in the various countries, or at least nationals from those countries joining the team. So it's obviously, and I think it's very different when you're looking at a service business or a SaaS business or a technology business, where the people side of it isn't, you don't have to have a customer service team necessarily that's dealing with, hundreds and thousands of customers. So if you really want to excel, and I believe every company that I start has to set out to be the next great service legend, then it's difficult because you just can't be there. So I would say, I'd love to say it's easy. It's certainly an aspiration, but I have not found it easy. Not from the States, the other way around.
And definitely, as you said, it's important to identify partners that understand the market, know what people are looking for, and how to communicate with them. You've been involved with so many product categories. How do you go about deciding what product category to focus on, let's say during a certain time period, whether it might be mattresses or something else? What process would you go through to identify the product and the industry segment that can experience disruption or can accept a new product introduction?
When it's kind of in your veins, in your blood, you're constantly thinking, is there an idea here? I mean, I'll share with you that actually in the year after I left my job running Lisa, which was 2019, the idea that I wanted to build, I played musical instruments, and I felt very strongly that we could develop a digital piano that we would source where most of them are made in China, actually, and build into it a screen that would allow remote learning of musical instruments. And I basically started a company called Dueton, like playing off Peloton. And I went out to try to raise money for it, and no one wanted. It was going to be about $200 to buy it, and I could have leased it, including lessons, for less than it cost people to lease a digital piano today. And it was a dying market, piano playing, but I felt that's because lessons were not widely available. And then I had teachers that were really into it, and I was telling them that for every 10 lessons they give, they have to provide one to a child that can't afford it. And all of that was going well, but I couldn't raise any money. The minute COVID hit, I had all these people calling me up saying, "Did you start that business? We'd love to invest in it." But of course, by then I was onto the Fascination because it didn't work out. And there have been others along the way. So it's just a constant thinking. And it depends how much time I've got. At that time, I knew I was looking for the next one. Same as, it was a very conscious thing when we launched Lisa. We decided as a management team, we were incredibly profitable at the time on the service side of what we were doing. And we wanted to build an enduring business. So we were looking for the right opportunity. And I had this poor experience with my daughter. And then I bumped into my co-founder, and I've been in the foam mattress topper business once before in a different business. And so I was very aware, if it was possible, that we could make money in that space. So it's hard to answer that question. And it definitely changes the answer whether I'm investing in it or I'm just helping other people.
David, you've had some incredible and very high profile entrepreneurs support your efforts, right? How do you go about attracting the attention of some very accomplished business builders who also may have celebrity status to support one's efforts? Good team, solid product proposition, but what do you feel would be key elements that someone should have in place to reach out and get them on board?
Yeah, I mean, you can't exactly reach out. It has to be more organic than that. When I go back, I've always had a comfort level with people at the time much older than me and much more successful than me from my strategy consulting days. And so I had a comfort, and my career just took me in these incredible directions. And in the days when I had clients paying me to fly first class and Concorde, I didn't talk to many people, but I met a lot of my early contacts flying in first class and on Concorde, and they led to other things and to opportunities. And then success does is quite magnetic, and then knowing how to respect people and their time. I've never really asked a celebrity to do anything that they weren't ready to do anyway. Like I knew I wasn't asking them to do anything that was difficult or out of the ordinary. I've never asked someone to, wave my product around and say, isn't this great? It's always been embedded in the real stuff that I do, like helping the homeless or so on. There was a time when Damon John, for example, that his team would tell us where he was going to give a speech, and did we have a shelter there that we could donate mattresses to, because he wanted to go and participate in that. We did that in a few cities. So I don't know how to answer that. This time around, we've got incredibly influential people. Sam Parr, who is the founder of The Hustle, which is very influential in the D2C world, and another guy, Nick Sharma, he's got on board, and Kat Cole. I just think that eventually the success has some momentum to it, and you just build a bit more each time and a bit more each time, and lo and behold, it sort of happens. I'm not really sure. I can't put my finger on it, and nor can I just introduce people to the people I know. It doesn't work that way,
Well, it's everything you said. So making sure that the building blocks are in place, building something solidly, a team in place, and then good reputation and giving back to the community. David, thank you very much once again for your time, your participation, your presentation as part of the Leading Entrepreneurs of the World series. We are very humbled by your great achievements throughout your journey, coming up with some very, very fine ideas and turning them into successful companies and taking them quickly to revenue generation and also through strategic transactions. Congratulations on all of your great success today. And we're all excited to continue observing everything you do and admiring the growth of the Fascination. Thank you. And we look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you.